There's been many,
Yeah.
and Will Smith said, he said racism hasn't grown. It's just now being filmed.
I
Yeah, it's
saw
been
that.
filmed.
I loved.
It's just being filmed.
Yeah.
I loved.
And that's
saw that too.
that's
Yeah.
the reality of
And
it.
now it's on social media.
Correct.
And now it's it's so accessible through the internet, and
Yeah.
it's not just hearing one story on TV.
Yeah, and it's
know.
also who's out there protesting. So when I think about COVID and the pandemic and how, we're all tired of this isolation, I don't know that we would have seen this movement behind Mr. Floyd had the pandemic not been going on.
Say that.
And the reason why I say that is because we were all in our homes. No one was working 14-hour days.
We had time.
Going on the train.
We got
had
time.
time.
Right.
And the video was shown
God, yeah.
time and time again. And when you see these young people out there, young white girls, let me just say,
My
right?
daughter.
Yeah.
That's my
that are
full-time job
out
now.
there,
Is keeping
people
her.
are taking notice.
Yeah.
Right? So when you are forced to watch, because that's all you see on TV, this video of this man being, kneed for 8 minutes and 40 something
46 seconds.
46
he
seconds.
had his hands in his pocket. The officer
$20.
had his hand
It was
in
$20,
his pocket.
right? It was for $20.
Right. And the thing about it is, I don't think George Floyd has a counterfeit money-making machine
No.
in his home.
No.
Right?
I
And
have
so-
said that. I'm like, I could easily.
You could easily get
anybody
change
could easily
Yeah.
get
at the
a
grocery
fake $20
store.
bill and use
Yeah.
it anywhere.
Right.
Yeah.
So the allegation was that he used a fake counterfeit money
Yeah.
in a store.
Yeah.
And the thing about it is that the way money changes hands, right? I get nervous whenever somebody puts the little pen on my dollar because I'm like, well, what are you trying to say?
Yeah.
And then I'm like, I don't even know where this money came from.
Right.
And so that to me is what makes it even more
Yeah.
tragic.
But he wasn't doing anything. I mean, he
Right.
couldn't do anything. He was not. You had him down.
He was handcuffed.
What could he do?
He was handcuffed.
What could he do? And
But people saw the video.
people
'cause they
saw the
had
video.
time.
And the other thing that I found that was interesting is this police officer knew he was being videoed, and he just continued.
That's
Like
true.
he knew. Like
Oh, I haven't thought about.
Yeah.
See, I am enjoying.
he's like
I'm not
looking at the
enjoying
video.
looking
I'm
at the
watching.
camera.
He was
I
looking at
do
the camera.
like that there are layers and layers to the discussion behind this.
Yeah.
Honestly.
It's sociopathic, his behavior. To pose, basically, for the camera. I mean, with his hands in his pocket, I don't think he was necessarily smiling, but just
Narcissistic.
completely. But sociopathic,
Yeah,
because
right.
because the sociopathic part is not even really caring about life or death. And I know there was a story
That
about
callousness.
how they correct,
Yeah.
how they worked together before. So so I'm wondering
Yeah,
if they
yeah.
knew each other,
yeah,
and in what
But even
way have their
so,
paths
Even so, yeah.
how much like
That's a depraved heart.
yes.
absolutely.
Isn't
know-
that what they determined, Dana? That they did work together?
Yeah,
Yeah, but I heard there wasn't a lot of interaction.
it's hard to
Maybe-
tell.
Yeah.
Right? They worked at the same place, but it's kind of
Yeah.
it's a nightclub, so the amount or the level of connection or interaction is
It
to be
doesn't-
determined. But still,
It doesn't even matter.
Yeah.
Still, it
That-
doesn't.
It doesn't
that's
matter.
An
It doesn't.
irrelevant piece of the story.
Right. There's
Yeah.
a big picture where it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
But I do think that there are good
People are just trying to
conversations to be
understand.
had
Yeah.
to how in our society we're so quick to just be like, oh well, because it just happens. That's just
Yeah.
what happens,
Yeah.
right?
Right.
So to dissect this story and to discuss all of the many layers, I think is of value.
There's a lot in the minutia for sure.
Yeah. I was going to say, like Dana, I also, I tend to try not to put too much out there on social media. Just try to keep things as,
Because you're already so famous.
I'll stop.
Well, and Benny's carrying a big load right now.
He is. But, for me, like the day I saw that video, I was, working all day, and I, got upstairs at night, and I'm turning on, CNN, and I see the video, and I froze. Because you hear him say, I can't breathe. You see this man looking into the camera, this police officer looking into the camera, that he's saying he can't breathe, and then he starts to call out for his mama.
Yeah,
and
that's
in
the
that
part I can't
moment,
stand.
in that moment, I thought about, oh my God, his mother, a mother, you want to protect your child. She can't be there, and she's hearing him and watching, him, clearly being murdered on national TV. And then you realize his mom had passed away. And that cry was for all of us mamas, right? And so I decided to put pen to paper, and I just started typing, and I put out this Facebook post. And I talked about just, the talk that we have to have, right, with our kids. And
Explain that. You should talk about what
the talk, right? We all have the talk. We think it's the sex talk with our 16-year-olds, or, the talk before you go off to college and be good and don't, do all this fun stuff that you want to do.
You used to do.
Yeah. Okay. We're not going there.
It's another show.
It's another show. But
Just keep banking those.
it's the talk, right? It's the talk that, you remember your parents having, and you're thinking, yeah, whatever, that doesn't make sense. But when you give birth, especially to a black boy, right, that is going to obviously turn into a young black man who people are going to be feel incredibly threatened by them just because they're black. You have to have that talk. And then also to your daughters as well, but more so to our young black men, because we know that the history there, right, in terms of police and all that. So I remember my husband and I had a talk with our son when he was about 10 years old. And thank God, because at 11 was when he was first called the N-word, and, having to kind of go through all of that with him. But it's that talk of when you get stopped, this is what you do. If you comply, you put your hands on the steering wheel, you never keep your hands in your pocket. There's all these things.
What was his reaction, Kim, when you had that talk with him? Was he just like, okay, I'll do that? Or was he like, why, what is
Well, our
this?
initial conversation was really not about like comply and all of that with the police, because he was 10, but it was more about
Right.
what people would say, may say to you. And the N-word. We talked about the N-word, right? And like 7 months later, he was at a pool in our neighborhood when we lived in Kansas. And he had just gone down to the pool, and 15 minutes later, he was back home. And he didn't say anything. But I'm like, what's going on? And the pool was literally like 4 houses down from our house. And so a few hours later, I went back and I was talking to him, and I said, what happened? And then he told me. And, I'm one of these.
Did you go to the pool?
I didn't go to the
Mama
pool,
Bear?
but here's what Mama. See, the way Mama Bear handles it is I go right to the parents.
Yeah.
Right.
So the mom and the son who said this to my son came over immediately.
a child who said it.
It was a child.
And how old was he at the
He was
time?
11.
Okay, so the other 11-year-old who said this to him, or he was also 11. the
Yeah,
other boy.
apparently they were playing in the pool, and a couple girls were there, and the girls seemed to be more interested in my son and not this other kid. And
So there was a conflict.
yeah. Not unbeknownst to my son, it
It's
was
more like an insecurity.
insecurity. Absolutely,
A lot of racism and isms
insecurity.
are founded in fear and insecurity
Yeah,
versus a conflict. In other words, it wasn't that her son had done anything.
he hadn't done anything.
It's just by him being a presence and being an attractive presence.
Being viewed as a threat to the person who's insecure.
Because the
Not
young
a
ladies
threat
were.
in a violent way, but I would
No,
I
no,
wouldn't
no,
use the word threat, but just in other words, this presumably white boy saw that her son was getting more attention than him.
Well, that's
Yeah.
what I mean. It's like
So it's
a
a-
threat to his standing as being like
Like,
the one that
they're-
always had the girls.
so
whatever.
it's let me tear him down
Sure.
to make myself feel better.
Yeah.
Which is a human behavior response.
Well, it's kind of an asshole response. I wouldn't
It's an
call it-
asshole
I
response.
wouldn't call it human.
Well,
So,
the reason I said human is because that exists regardless of
Yeah.
race, but then you have this
Oh, it's
other-
everything.
Yeah.
Right.
You see a girl who's got bigger boobs.
Sorry,
She's smarter than you.
I'm not
She's
apologizing.
cuter than you.
Never apologize.
She's got more on the ball than you. I
Well-
mean, women do this all the time.
Well, that's
Yeah.
what
It's
I
the tear
Yeah.
down.
Yeah.
Right.
You know, and
Right.
it's all of that has to stop. You know, what I want people to do is manage your own triggers.
Yeah.
You know, do better is what I always say. Like,
Pissing in my yard isn't going to make yours any greener.
that part. Say it again for the people in the back.
Come on, Corey.
Say it again.
Preach.
Pissing in my yard ain't going to make yours any
Thank
greener.
you for
There
bringing
you
country
go.
music lyrics.
Casey,
to
no,
we
no,
need.
is it Casey Musgraves?
Yes.
Yeah,
That's what
the
we
song
need.
Biscuits. That is
Yeah.
my
It's
favorite
a great
lyric.
song. It talks. It